Good afternoon. Today is the 27th of November and I bring greetings from an incredibly rainy Surrey where yesterday I've been doing a job and I picked up this 2010 Vauxhall Astra 1.6 SE automatic for a couple of my friends who wanted me to source a car for them. We're not really doing a walk around on this particular car. I'm sure you've seen these Astras before. This is an Astra J, which were made from 2009 to 2015. They'll be on the roads for quite some time to come. This is particularly rare, being the 1.6 SE automatic. But the purpose of the video is not so much to talk about the car, it's to talk about basic maintenance checks that you might do. One of the reasons why I was asked to source this car was because the previous car that my friends had a maintenance schedule neglected a little bit. So what we're going to do is just look at some very basic maintenance checks that you can do yourself to make sure that your car doesn't suffer from undue neglect, shall we say. Right, let's open her up. And let's put my umbrella down for 1 second. On an Astra J, the bonnet release is just down here. It's just there, and if you want to open the bonnet, just pull this handle, and that should pop open. And now we'll walk round to the front. So you can see the bonnet has just popped open. I'm going to need 2 hands to do this, so I won't actually film this bit, but if you lift the bonnet up slightly with one hand and then pull the release lever in this particular one to the right hand side, that should pop open. I know a lot of you, this will be second nature for you, and so if this isn't your sort of video, then by all means go and watch something else, I don't know, Rubbish Mechanic, Hub Nut, something like that. But there are people for whom this is not familiar to them, and this could be useful, so we shall continue by looking at the engine. So you can see the bonnet stay lives just down there when it's not in use, and very helpfully Vauxhall have put a little yellow plastic piece around where the bonnet stay lives when it's in the up position. Some cars do have hydraulic bonnet struts, which makes life a bit easier. This is the 1.6 litre Family 1 engine. It's a very normal type of engine. This one's got variable valve timing in it, which means you get a little bit more power at the top end. There's no turbo or anything on this car. See, here we've got the battery. That's the expansion tank for the engine coolant. There is the dipstick at the front, which is helpfully marked in yellow. There is the oil filler cap. And that is, I believe, the brake fluid reservoir. This car has got electric power steering in it. I'm not entirely sure where the reservoir is. Sometimes there isn't one with a car with electric power steering, but on a car with hydraulic power steering, like our MG3, then that's something that you need to do just to check the level in the power steering is okay. There's also here the windscreen washer reservoir. I don't know if you can see that. Actually, that's better on camera than it is in real life. You can see the level of the windscreen washer fluid is nice and high. There's very few cars I know of that actually will show you if that's low. One of the only ones I know was the Mark III Ford Escort. So let's have a look at how we check the oil. So dipstick is very easy to get to in this car. It's right at the front, and you can see the oil is a nice honey colour. This car's just been serviced, so it's a nice sort of honey colour. I will need 2 hands to actually check it with a paper towel, cloth, something like that. So what I were to do with that would be to pull up the dipstick, wipe it, put it back in, and then coming out of there, that would see the oil level would be right. Of course, this car, I checked it yesterday myself, and the oil level is fine. Next thing we can have a look at is, almost fell over there, is the coolant reservoir. Now, on a car that has done very low mileage, like this one, it's only done 45,000 miles, sometimes in this particular engine you'll find there's a little bit of gunk on the bottom of the tank here. Now, this isn't necessarily anything to worry about. Both the Astras we looked at yesterday had this issue. Yeah, that should ideally be clean, and you can see sort of here that it's a sort of red colour, this particular type of coolant. This is OAT coolant, sort of red colour. One thing you don't do is mix the sort of green coolant and the red type like this. You don't do that. That's a bad idea. One of the things that I have used in the past, where I'm not sure what type of coolant the car will take, is to get a sort of colourless coolant to top up, and in the winter that should be a different sort of mixture from the summer. But that level all looks fine. Another thing we can do is take off the oil filler cap and see if there's any deposit on the inside, which this is nice and clean. There's no deposit on there. If you had deposit on there, it's possible that you might have oil mixed with the coolant, and that could be a sign that the cylinder head gasket of the car has failed and you need a new head gasket, and that can be hundreds of pounds. So obviously not so good. On some cars, like the early Skoda Octavias and the Mark IV Volkswagen Golf, if you had a bit of sort of gunky stuff on the bottom there, that's actually not a problem. That's the design of the engine. But generally, sort of many type of stuff on the oil filler cap is not so good. Another thing we can look at is the battery terminals. See if they're corroded. These ones look okay. Weirdly enough, there's a lot more space in here for a battery than you actually need. This is the right type of battery for the car. It's just there is a lot of space. Batteries can be located in all kinds of weird places. Maybe in the boot, maybe under the back seat. This is a much simpler end to show. Another thing that we might be able to check if someone's left us like a sticker in here is when the timing belt of this engine was changed. On a Family 1 engine, which is the Family 1 engine, General Motors Family 1 engine, the recommended interval is around 80,000 miles, or every, I think it's 7 or 8 years. So this one is due to be replaced. Right, now we're inside and out of the rain. We're going to do some other checks in here. Just turn that off. Here we go, muted. Apologies for that. So if we, because this is an automatic, put our foot on the brake, start the car. I might have to mute this again. There we go. You'll notice that the engine temperature gauge, this has a proper engine temperature gauge, unlike some cars. That's on dead cold at the moment. We want to make sure that that warms up relatively quickly. One of the things that you can do to check your heating system is to, even now, I mean it's pretty cold outside, it's 12 degrees, but just to put it on nice and cold, turn up the fan there, just to make sure that we're getting, you know, proper cold air coming through, to make sure the air conditioning is working. That's useful to do even in the winter months, and you can actually use the air conditioning system to clear the windscreen, which is what I'm doing now. That's clearing nicely, even though the engine's still really cold. One of the things, if you notice, if you go from a conventional petrol like this to a diesel car, is that diesel might take a while to warm up. So what I'm going to do now is just move the car very slightly. This has got an electronic handbrake which should just release automatically. So I've just put it in reverse and I'll just move it back ever so slightly. Just check the pedal pressure. Obviously you shouldn't do this when you're filming, I'm just doing it for the sake of demonstration. Move it slightly forwards. Just make sure the pedal pressure feels nice and firm, which it does, which is good. Let's turn the car off again 1 second. One of the things that you'll sometimes need to do is replace the brakes in a car, and depending on what the mileage you're doing, you can get 60,000 miles out of a set of brakes and pads at the front, which is what I've done. However, it could be you get a lot less than that. It depends what type of car you've got. And if you have any kind of sensation, if I can film the brake pedal from here, yes I can, of sort of when you're pushing it, a sort of grinding feeling, or feeling that the discs are wobbling, then you need to get that seen to as soon as possible. If you've got brakes that are grinding, you should probably stop driving the car immediately, or get it to a fast fit centre or something like that as soon as you can, someone you trust, and get those brakes looked at, and possibly it could be time for you to shell out for new discs and pads. Some cars do have a brake wear indicator. Sometimes it's an audible warning, sometimes like again on an Escort Mark III, because I don't know what I'm talking about Mark III Escorts, but I am. There is actually a warning light on the dashboard that shows you if the brake pads are wearing, which is very handy. I don't know why more cars don't do that, to be honest. So yes, those are some of the things you could do. One of the other things that we can try out is to make sure that the car starts nice and promptly. Again, foot on the brake, sometimes it'll be the clutch, and make sure all the warning lights go out. Some of them will stay on a little bit longer. Obviously, I've not got my seatbelt on, so that's going to be flashing. But all the warning lights have gone out. Haven't got an airbag light on. The reason why the light is on for the headlamps is because this car's got automatic lights. Another thing to check is the wipers and make sure the blades are doing nicely. These are clearing the windscreen nicely. Pull the wiper stalk for the washer, that's coming through nicely as well. So you don't need to change anything to do with that. Don't need to change the blades, which is a relatively simple process in most cars, change the blades, which you can have a look at doing yourself. Check the rear wiper, that seems fine. If you push that away, I think in this car it's the rear washer jet, which is again working just fine. It's worth pointing out that some cars don't have a timing belt in the engine. They have what's called a timing chain. The MG3 that we have is an example of that. Yeah, there's no scheduled interval for changing the chain. Unlike a belt. So although some cars do have timing chain problems, and you know, owners forums and things like that will tell you if your particular car does experience that sort of problem. So I thought I'd film this section, but it looks like I haven't, so we'll just do this again. So foot on the brake, because this is an automatic. Start the car up to make sure all the warning lights go out. There's loads of warning lights in this car. We've got an electronic handbrake in this car, which is why the handbrake light's not showing on, because you know, a lot of the time in an automatic you don't need to put the electronic handbrake on if you've got an electronic handbrake. We have, however, got a warning light for because I've got my seatbelt on, because I haven't, and we've got automatic lights in the car, that's why they're on. So we'll just do a wiper test. Sorry about that. Just put the wipers on. They seem to be clearing the screen nicely, so the blade's obviously in good condition. Just check the wash functionalities, pull that stalk there. Those looks fine. We checked the level a bit earlier, so that's okay. Wiper blades and things like that are something that you might want to do yourself, actually. A lot of cars it's relatively easy. Let's check the rear wiper, which is on this car, it's right at the end of the stalk here. And we'll check the rear washer, which is pushing it away. That's all fine. That blade looks like it's in good condition too. We had a look at the air conditioning, I believe, which I'll just turn off, and we're all clear. Some cars there's like a funny smell coming through from the air conditioning, or it doesn't work, and sometimes it's just a question of you got low coolant, and you know, you should top your coolant up. Make sure you check that every week, as well as your oil, particularly an old car. And yes, there's not much else to really say about that. I think we covered the section about brake pads and brake disc wear. So that should be most of the basic checks that you can do yourself. So one of the things I will just show you quickly before we end the video is how to check your tyre tread depths. One of the things you can use is a 20p piece like this one, and you can put it just within the treads of the tyre. You should do it right in the middle, but because I can't really film, I'm just showing you. And if the band of the 20p piece is covered by the tyre tread depth, then you've got a perfectly legal tyre, which this one is, which is 1.6 millimeters. There's plenty of tread left on this. Yeah, you see it's well covered. It's a useful thing to know. So that's just some basic maintenance checks that you can perform on virtually any car. I'm not kind of electric cars, but you know, that's still a minority thing in this country, although they will become more common. That's a video that I hope will sort of save you a bit of time. I can't share how to check tyre pressures because I haven't got an inflator with me. I would do that if I had one. A lot of cars have got tyre pressure monitoring anyway, but it's worth checking them. And I used to always go to Sainsbury's and just use the inflator there, which is free. And sometimes in the fuel fill flap of the car or down there, you can find the recommended tyre pressures for your car. But yeah, I think that's most of it. I'm sorry this video's gone on for a bit longer than I thought to. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. This video really wasn't designed too much at a lot of my regular viewers who I know are very familiar with doing all these checks. It's more for sort of general use for someone who's maybe not as automotively minded as a lot of I know you are. But anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching.